What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a huge preview of weapon changes which are coming in the final shape. So we'll be touching on a whole bunch of different elements of the weapon sandbox in the game. Firstly, we can talk a little bit more about new weapons that we'll be getting. That includes destination weapons, some of the archetypes, perks, and clarifications from Bungie on what to expect. But also, recently we've got more details about exotic changes. Things like the addition of a tessellation catalyst, which is set to be subclass and ability related. That's certainly going to be interesting with Prismatic being added. But also new information on exotic buffs, reworks for the colony, truth, necrochasm and queenbreaker's bow. But also upcoming perk changes, adjustments for chain reaction, updates to crafting systems, loopholes, and of course brand new exotic weapons that we're going to see. So quite a lot to talk about in this video guys. As always, I hope you find it useful. Let us know what you're most excited for down in the comment section, and without further delay, let's get into it. One of the first things I wanted to touch on right here are some new weapons for the final shape. When Bungie revealed the expansion, they did show us this image with some of the destination weapons on it. Obviously, they've got their own sort of unique theme and some cool Vanguard mentor artwork on the side. Firstly, I should mention we've spotted other interesting elements, like a Titan on the new destination wearing the final shape armor, but also holding the perfect paradox shotgun. So we might see some legendary reprises. Back to destination weapons though, we have a little more information about what their archetypes and some of the perks may look like. And Sab5106 on Reddit actually did a really useful breakdown from some of the recent gameplay in the final shape. Firstly, there is the support frame auto rifle. Interestingly, this thing will actually be able to heal allies. And from what we can see, it is a solo weapon. Then while of course we can't see full perk pools for these things yet, this one has Frenzy. There's also going to be a special ammo sidearm, which will be Strand. And Chris Proctor from Bungie did confirm that there'll be at least 2 more rocket sidearms. This one actually shows with the perk Danger Zone, so that's very interesting. But in there as well we spot a solar fusion rifle, then a kinetic precision frame shotgun, and that's visible from the reticle on the weapon. And it's got the perk Swashbuckler, then there is a Strand machine gun, and in different clips this one showed up with Demolitionist, Bait and Switch, and Reconstruction active. Presumably there are different roles of the weapon spotted in the footage, but while I'd say weapon perks specifically are subject to change, that sounds potentially pretty juicy. But in there as well, the hand cannon appears to be Stasis, the sword Solar, and there'll also be an energy slot sniper in there too. So those are the destination weapons, and Bungie have also teased a new Pathfinder system for the destination vendor, and instead of the current sort of vendor rank system, there'll be a new way to progress, and given that these appear to be destination weapons, that'll certainly impact how we earn them. Another quick mention though worth saying, for legendary weapons and for ritual stuff, Bungie had said to account for the length of the current season and upcoming episodes, which will drop after Final Shape, they're planning to increase the Nightfall weapon pool to 8 weapons, so where we currently have 6, there will actually be a couple more in the rotation at a given time. Then for Trials, they'll return to 6 weapons in rotation, and this will allow its adept weapons to get more chances to be featured. So a minor adjustment to how the loophools themselves will work there. And for other sort of broad weapon changes, for crafting, Bungie had said, at the moment they're in the middle of developing a large crafting related feature targeted for the Final Shape year, so there won't necessarily be any significant changes to crafting immediately at the launch of Final Shape, but it's something else that may see quite a bit of a shake-up at some point in the near future, and that's in addition to a bunch of existing weapons becoming enhanceable, which will allow us to get enhanced versions of the traits normally reserved for crafted weapons. And for instance, Bungie included the Brave arsenal of weapons from Into the Light in that list, so more weapons getting that functionality will be a positive as well. Up next though, to talk about changes for exotics, gotta give a big shout out to Podcast vs Enemies and Courtroom on Reddit for getting some juicy weapon info from Chris Proctor at Bungie, who's the weapon design lead on Final Shape, as there are a few things which Bungie haven't otherwise revealed, and the full breakdown for that podcast is linked below. For Final Shape highlights though, firstly, Chris Proctor confirmed that Tessellation will be receiving a catalyst in the Final Shape, and that it will be a subclass or ability related catalyst. So that's very interesting given the weapon's ability to change elements, and the fact that we're getting Prismatic in the Final Shape, which is the new subclass that's allowing us to mix and match various different subclass components, including light and darkness abilities. And with that weapon being related to Final Shape pre-order, it may have some additional functionality with Prismatic, which is pretty interesting. Let us know what you think about that, but Bungie also spoke about Necrochasm, and they've said it will receive a buff to extend the duration of the poison damage over time effect from the Cursed Thrall explosion, and will additionally get a new catalyst, which is called One for Thrall, and that grants a moderate period of increased damage, range, range and aim assist after you damage 3 enemies in quick succession, and damaging more enemies with the perk active will refresh the timer, so that's looking like it could be a pretty good one. Then in the podcast, Chris Proctor said on the subject of truth that it cannot perform impact damage, which results in a lower damage output versus other rockets, and that's because it has grenades and horseshoes built into it from D1, but they are increasing the detonation damage of truth to do full damage output, so bumping it up to match other rockets in the game, and then the detonation and reserve buff will be on top of the damage ratio and reserves buff that truth has already had recently, and they're once again increasing reserves by 3, so that is going to be one to watch. On top of that though, for the colony, they've revamped it to allow insectoid robot grenades to spawn more insectoids, and he said there will be a short cooldown between each spawn, but there will be plenty more of them about, and the amount of insectoids spawned will depend on the enemy rank, so rank and file red bars will spawn 1, but higher value targets can spawn up to 5. There'll also be a change for the Queenbreaker, where they're increasing damage to mini-bosses, champions, bosses and vehicles by 12%, increasing reserve ammo by 3, plus he said they may have future updates for that weapon as well. So a few more specifics on some of the weapon changes there, and Bungie also suggested there'll be a significant tuning pass for broad weapon archetypes as well, and perk changes, which Chris Proctor revealed. So firstly, chain reaction is going to be reworked to accommodate it being added to other weapons like glaives in the future, so that's interesting in itself, but for special ammo weapons, there'll be a 15% smaller detonation radius and 20% reduced damage. Then for heavy ammo weapons, they'll keep the current detonation radius, but they'll see 30% increased damage, and he said heavy grenade launchers will be significantly better at ad clear than special grenades are. So looking at changes like those, the reserve ammo buff, and some of the perk selections that Bungie are giving us on heavies at the moment, it would appear that they're probably going to focus on those being much better sort of ad clear weapons than they are DPS weapons. Obviously that's a bit of a generalization, but it seems like that is the sort of philosophy or goal. Another change though for Chill Clip, and they say its previous nerf didn't make much of an impact and instead hurt anything that wasn't Riptide. So Riptide will keep its 3 shots to freeze that it currently has, but non-rapid-fire fusion rifles and other weapons, including single magazine weapons, will be unnerfed back down to 2 shots to freeze. So essentially rewinding that nerf for everything other than Riptide. Now though, let's finish with a bang, I guess, and talk a little bit about exotic weapons. And firstly, a lot of players probably aren't really thinking about this, but at the minute, at the reveal for Final Shape, we did get confirmation that both Red Death and Kvostov will be brought back into Destiny 2. And so an exotic variant of Kvostov will return. Of course, in D1, it was a weapon that gave us a whole bunch of different options in Year 3 on how it would perform. Maybe that means that when it comes back, it could potentially be a craftable weapon. Either way, you would expect probably fairly significant reworks to have some of the weapon functions in order to actually make it enticing to use in Destiny 2. To an extent, you could say the same thing about Red Death. While in D1 it was a very strong weapon, we do have things like Crimson in D2, which certainly is a meta weapon most of the time in the minute anyway, but in terms of basic behavior, it's more or less identical to what Red Death was in D1. So while Red Death will be a very strong PvP pulse rifle presumably if it behaves anything like D1, we can probably expect Bungie to do some other sort of reworks for it in terms of making it strong in PvE content. So really curious to see more of the reprised weapons, but for new exotics, firstly, yes, we should get one from the raid. That will remain completely secret, I suppose, but Bungie have shown off a new exotic sniper. Now this is a solar sniper rifle, and I think it was Joe Blackburn said it can fire a golden gun-like shot. We haven't seen gameplay of the thing, but this is probably a round that we can build up by charging the weapon somehow or hitting crits, allowing us to fire a much more devastating shot. So that sounds interesting, and it's a Tex Mechanica weapon, of course. But equally cool is the Traveler's Beam exotic trace rifle. We've seen an image of it, or I think this is probably concept art, but Bungie revealed the aim and the concept for the weapon in general is for it to fire a Traveler-style beam, much like what we saw in the cutscene from Lightfall. And who knows, maybe it can inflict enemies with the light, or something like that. Certainly would be cool. But otherwise, that's all we really have on the new exotic weapons, just teasers for the moment. Although, with Final Shape creeping up now less than a couple of months away, certainly we'll get more technical information about the sandbox side of things and Bungie's plans there, and in a few weeks time no doubt Bungie will be showing off more gameplay, trailers and juicy stuff to get players hyped for the expansion. So if you want to be kept up to date with all of that, then stay locked and loaded here on the channel, get subscribed, and if you don't want to miss out on anything, hit the notification bell as well so that I can keep you posted. Let us know what you're most excited for down in the comment section, and if you've enjoyed the video, a rating really does help us out as well. Otherwise though, thank you for tuning in guys, and whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.